Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to another segment of Coach Gurbani's a-sabad-a-day. We continue with our recitation with the 73rd Shabad from Asa Mahalla Panjwa, Bani of Guru Arjan. And the recitation. Asa Mahalla Panjwa, Kaam Krodh Ahankar Vigute, Har Simran Kar Har Jan Chute, सोए रहे माया मद माते, जागत भगत सिमरत हर राते रहाओ। मोह भरम बहु जोन पवाया, अस्थिर भगत हर चरण ध्याया। बंधन अंधकूप ग्रह मेरा, मुक्ते संत बुझे हर नेरा। कहो नानक जो प्रभ सरनाई, यहाँ सुख आगे गत पाई। काम क्रोध अहंकार विगूते. Desire, anger, and conceit have corrupted the mind. Vigute, meaning to corrupt, to scatter, to spoil something. So desire, anger, and conceit have corrupted the mind. But Har Simran Kar Har Jan Chute, the Harjan, the devotees of the Har, they remain incorruptible. How do they do that? Har Simran Kar, through the practice of Har Simran, remembrance. Now, not to be confused with ordinary remembrance. We'll talk about that. What that means is cultivating a mindful, intuitive awareness of the Har self through Guru wisdom. So you see, what happens is when the ego mind self-identifies, we've been talking about its obsession of how man to self-identify. So what happens is there is an unconscious layer created which it doesn't identify but doesn't understand, but that corrupts. It becomes unruly, and that is when the passions emerge and the ego mind identifies with the passions, gets corrupted by the passions. So Vigute, the consciousness is stained. In other words, it's constricted, narrow. So Har Simran is remembrance, but we are not trying to recollect a name, a date, or an event. Har Simran is a method. It's a systematic way of recovering the mind's pristine consciousness by overcoming this constricting stain of the passions. You see, and the tool for that is Guru wisdom. Now in the Rahao, the Guru says, Soe rahe maya madmate. Maya. Maya has intoxicating power. And because it intoxicates, we remain asleep. Soe rahe. What that means is we remain intoxicated. We are unaware of our true nature. Jagat Bhagat, but divine lovers, the Bhagats, they are awake because they're incorruptible. Simrati Hararate, through the practice of Simran that we alluded to, they establish a bond of love with the Creator herself. So to be asleep, soe rahe, as we have said, implies unawareness. And being unaware means we do not understand our true nature that is rooted in the Har self. So the mind's exclusive self-identification that we talk about precludes a lot of experience and knowledge, which is all there, but paradoxically it remains a part of the ego as an unconscious layer. And it is this unconscious layer that then becomes automatic. You see, we react automatically to things. It becomes passion, Kaam Krodh Ahankar. And the ego is sedated. The ego rather sedates the discerning intellect, the buddhi, the self. Now, to be sure, this is all part of a cosmic game of individuation. This is the Creator playing with itself. Our goal is to see through the game by becoming divine lovers. Moho param bahu jon pavaya. So in this delusion of attachment, in this intoxication and self-doubt, we experience many cycles of birth and death. What does that mean? We'll come to that in a moment. Asthir pagate har charanate aya. The Bhagats break this cycle by remaining steadfast in self-knowledge. So let's see, what is the cycle? Why does the delusion cause us to experience the cycles of birth and death? So the cycles of birth and death are delusions of the ego mind, because it comes about because the ego is in time and space. Time supervenes, interrupts that universal consciousness. And so when the Bhagats attune to the self, they transcend time and space. And from that transcendent perspective, they realize that coming and going is really an illusion of the ego. It's the ego that comes and goes, not the essential self. Bandhane andha koop grah mera. My bondage to Maya placed me in a blind spot, in a blind alley, a blind well, literally speaking. Mukte sant bujhe haranera. Mukte. I freed myself from that blind alley by turning to the Sant, enlightener, who gave me the discernment. So when the self individuates itself through the process of how main kar kar jant upaya, our experience becomes partial. We've talked about that. And confined to our existential boundary. But at the same time, it also becomes sequential, because now it has boundaries. It is like being in the bottom of a dark well, which we cannot see all at once in darkness, because you can only see as far as you can look with your eyesight, right? As wherever you flash that light, you're only seeing that portion of the room. You can't see it all. Similarly, that's what happens with the ego. And in conclusion, Nanak says, those who find shelter in that wisdom of the self, Kaho Nanak jo Prabh Saranai, Saran, feet, shelter. Iha Sukha, they find happiness, wholesomeness, Age, Gatapai, and are enabled to move forward freely into the future. In other words, they overcome the obstruction created by the ego. So that is the question. How do we get out of this darkened space, Andhakoop, the ego prison that we are in? The answer to that question is Prabh Saranai, the path of Gurmat, which is an expression of the grace of the Creator. We have to get on the path of grace and seek that grace through love, through devotion. Vaheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji ki Fateh.